Hi again. The second concept that we're going to share here is the spheres of impact. And so be sure that you've watched the spectrum of impact video and understood how that works. And now we're going to move into the spheres, which is the other dimension of the My Why framework that we're going to invite you to interact with a bit over this module and beyond. So want to be sure that you get that. So here we are on the My Why diagram, and you'll recognize that spectrum of impact over the top, right? The government, not-for-profit, social enterprise, and corporate sectors that we spoke about. But now you'll notice these extra icons and shaded pieces throughout the kind of rainbow, if you will, here. And those are what we think of as the spheres of impact. So let's go through one by one. First, we think about kind of this below the fold piece, if you will, which is the more personal and internal levers that you have in your life for impact. First, just starting with yourself, right? How much you are taking care of yourself, your physical, mental, emotional well being, so that you can have a positive impact on the people and organizations around you. This is that oxygen mask metaphor that you'll hear us refer to over and over, that you need to have your oxygen mask to be breathing well first, literally and figuratively, before you can help anyone around you. And I think it can be really easy for those of us who are thinking about impact and meaning to always focus externally. But this internal self care, whether that's sleep or eating right or meditation practice or running or making sure you have some physical beauty in your day somehow, whatever those self care things are for you, that's a really important impact driver because it keeps you well enough to do the work for others. And secondly, we talk about your family and friends as another really valid lever for impact, right? So the children you're raising or the elders that you're caring for in a dignified way, the support you're providing to friends and chosen family, those are all things that can have really significant positive ripples in the world that, again, we don't always necessarily take credit for as being impactful, but indeed, those are very real ways to have impact. And then next, we look beyond the personal, right, and more externally. These are a lot of the ways that we more traditionally think about the impact we have in the world. So, first and foremost, what is your job, right? What are the tasks that you are paid or somehow compensated to do for an organization in the world? And then secondly, what is that organization, right? So we can break this down thinking about, perhaps imagine you're an accountant, right? And so your job is to track numbers and report accounting issues, right? What the revenues are, what the costs are, and come up with reports that way, which, may not feel extremely impactful in the immediate moment. A sidebar here, I do think there are ways actually that accounting tracking can be very powerful, right? Perhaps you are the one tracking and analyzing data about a wage gap, or comparing wages across gender or race at your company, so that that can be rectified. Great way for an accountant to be very specifically impactful. Similarly, there are ways to do the accounting behind environmental impact issues, which get more credibility and uptake of environmental sustainability. So accountants can have direct impact in their job, but I know sometimes that that doesn't feel as high impact as other things that we might like to think about. But now imagine that you're an accountant for Patagonia or Save the Children, right? And now all of a sudden your accounting work is making possible this very sustainable, in some ways even regenerative way of selling outerwear, and outdoor clothing accessories that Patagonia does. Or even more profoundly, you're enabling Save the Children's work with refugees or children of conflict. And now all of a sudden that accounting work that you're doing is very tangibly contributing to positive impact in the world. And so we encourage you to think about both your job specifically, but also the organization for which you're doing it as levers for impact. Next, we'll move to your community. Many of us spend a lot of our waking hours at our job, but it is not all that we do. And so, what about the board memberships or volunteering, right? Formal or informal ways that you're contributing in your community. And finally, your money. What do you buy on a day-to-day basis and who do you buy it from? How much do you buy? Right? These are all questions to ask that even if you're on a low budget, perhaps earlier in your career or later in life, maybe you did go for the route of working at a nonprofit and maybe that was less financially rewarding than some other things. You still are buying things every day. And so making intentional choices about buying from local suppliers, buying from minority or female owned businesses, buying from certified B Corps, which we talked about on the spectrum. Those are all ways to influence the impact you have using your money. Of course, there are also ways of making donations and making investments that can align with your values and have great impact. So those are the spheres of impact, and they add up with the spectrum of impact to this My Why diagram. So back shortly in the next video to dive into that My Why.